Right now, in cities across America, Canada, and Mexico, something is happening that only comes around once every 4 years. Offices are secretly streaming something on their phones. Your coworker, who never talks about sports, suddenly has very strong opinions. And if you've been wondering what all the noise is about, you're in exactly the right place. This is the FIFA World Cup. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand not just what it is, but why 5 billion people on this planet stop everything to watch it. Let's start from the very beginning. Here's the thing most people don't realize about the World Cup. It is not just a sports tournament. It is the single largest sporting event in human history. To put that in perspective, the Super Bowl, America's biggest sporting event, drew around 115 million viewers in 2024. The 2022 FIFA World Cup final was watched by close to 1.5 billion people. That is not a typo. 1.5 billion people watching one football match across the entire 2022 tournament. 5 billion people engaged with the World Cup through television, streaming, and social media. That's more than half the population of the entire planet. No other event in human history, not the Olympics, not the Super Bowl, not anything, comes close to those numbers. Hosted right here in North America for the first time in 32 years. The projections say this could be even bigger. So the real question isn't what is the World Cup. The real question is how did one sporting event become this important to this many people? That's what we're going to answer today.
It starts almost 100 years ago. The year is 1930. Football, what Americans call soccer, has been played for decades across Europe and South America. But there's never been one tournament to find out who the best nation on earth truly is. FIFA, the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, the global governing body of football, decides to fix that. They host the very first World Cup in Uruguay, South America. Just 13 teams show up. Several European nations refuse to make the longboat journey across the Atlantic. Uruguay, the host nation, wins the inaugural tournament, defeating Argentina 4-2 in the final, in front of 93,000 people. A tradition is born. The tournament grows, slowly at first, then rapidly. By 1950, Brazil hosts and 200,000 fans pack the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, still the largest crowd ever to watch a football match. By 1966, England wins on home soil. By 1970, Brazil wins it for the third time, with what many historians call the greatest team ever assembled. By 1986, Diego Maradona single-handedly carries Argentina to glory, with performances still debated to this day. And in 2022, in the most dramatic final in the tournament's history, Argentina's Lionel Messi fulfilled a lifetime's worth of dreams, winning the World Cup in a 4-2 penalty shootout victory over France. After a 3-3 draw that had the entire planet on its feet. From 13 teams in 1930 to 48 teams in 2026. From a boat journey across the Atlantic to 5 billion viewers on every device imaginable. This is how a tournament becomes a religion. Now let's talk about how the World Cup actually works, because the 2026 edition has a brand new format that even longtime fans are still getting used to. Here's the simple version. Qualification. The World Cup doesn't just invite whoever it wants. Every country on earth has to earn their place. 206 nations entered the qualification process for 2026, competing in their regional groups over nearly 3 years to secure one of the 48 spots in the tournament. Only 45 teams qualified through competition. The other 3, the United States, Canada, and Mexico, qualified automatically as host nations. During qualification alone, 899 matches were played and 2,527 goals were scored. And that's just to get to the tournament. The group stage. Once the 48 teams arrive, they're divided into 12 groups of 4 teams each. Groups A through L. Every team plays the other 3 teams in their group once. Win, and you get 3 points. Draw, and you get 1 point each. Lose, and you get nothing. The top 2 teams from each group advance automatically. On top of that, the 8 best third-place teams across all 12 groups also advance. That means 32 teams survive the group stage. The knockout rounds. This is where 2026 is completely different from every previous World Cup. For the first time ever, there is a round of 32, a brand new knockout round that has never existed before. After that comes the round of 16, then the quarterfinals, just 8 teams left, then the semifinals. And finally, on July 19, 2026, the World Cup final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. 1 match, 1 trophy, 1 champion. In total, 104 matches will be played across 39 days and 16 stadiums across 3 countries. For comparison, the entire 2022 World Cup had 64 matches. 2026 is 40% larger than any World Cup that came before it. But here's the thing that no stat can fully explain. The World Cup is not really about football. It's about identity. When a team walks onto that pitch, they don't just represent 11 players. They represent an entire nation. Every person who was born there, every person who grew up dreaming of this moment, every person watching in a living room 10,000 miles away. That weight, that pressure, is something no other sport creates in quite the same way. Think about what it means for the United States in 2026. America is hosting this tournament on home soil for the first time since 1994. A new generation of American players, young, talented, hungry, has a chance to perform in front of their own country. Or think about Norway, a nation of 5.5 million people. A team that hasn't been to a World Cup since 1998, 28 years ago. Now they arrive with Erling Haaland, the most lethal striker on the planet, playing in his very first World Cup, carrying the dreams of an entire country on his shoulders. Or Morocco. In 2022, they became the first African nation in history to reach a World Cup semifinal. They beat Belgium, Spain, and Portugal, three of the most powerful football nations on earth. People across an entire continent wept with joy. Or think about the debutantes in 2026 nations like Cape Verde, Curacao, and Jordan, competing at the World Cup for the very first time in their history. For the players on those teams, this isn't just a game. This is everything. That's why 5 billion people watch. Not for the tactics, not for the statistics, for the moments that remind you that sport, at its best, can make the whole world feel like one thing. So here's what you now know. The FIFA World Cup began in 1930 with 13 teams and a boat journey across the Atlantic. 96 years later, it is the most watched event in human history. 5 billion people, 48 nations, 104 matches, 3 host countries, and 1 gold trophy that changes the life of every player who lives it. The 2026 edition is the biggest World Cup ever built. It runs from June 11th to July 19th, right here in North America, in cities you know, in stadiums you might have been to, with matches broadcast across every screen in America. Whether you've watched football your entire life, or whether this is the first time you've ever paid attention, 2026 is the perfect moment to start. Because here's what the World Cup always delivers. Moments that nobody predicted. Teams that shock the world. Players who become legends overnight. And a final that, if 2022 is anything to go by, will leave you completely breathless. Brazil, France, Argentina, England, Germany, Spain, and somewhere in that field of 48 nations, one team nobody is talking about today, who is quietly preparing to change everything. That's the World Cup, and it starts right now. The first World Cup was watched by 93,000 people in a stadium in Uruguay. The 2026 World Cup will be watched by 5 billion people across the planet. Somewhere in that number is you. Welcome to the beautiful game.